the hidden signs you're spiritually awakened. Awakening is not changing who you are, but discarding who you are not. These words remind us that spiritual awakening is less about seeking something new and more about remembering the truth that has always lived within you. In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore the hidden signs that show your soul has already begun to awaken, the quiet shifts in perception, the sudden clarity after chaos, the deep sense that something greater is guiding you. As Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." So as you listen, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Which of these signs have you felt in your life? Comment below and share your experiences. Your story may help someone else awake too. 1. Synchronicity. The universe speaks through patterns. Spiritually awakened people often find that reality begins to speak to them in ways that logic cannot explain. What Carl Jung called synchronicity, a principle of non-causal connection, is the universe's way of communicating directly with your consciousness. It's not coincidence, and it's not luck. It's alignment. When your inner vibration harmonizes with your authentic self, the world outside starts to mirror it back through symbols, patterns, and meaningful events that seem divinely timed. You begin to notice repeated numbers, a song that plays right when you need its message, or a stranger who says something that answers a question you've silently carried. These moments feel orchestrated because they are. They reveal that you are living in union with Unus Mundus, the interconnected field of all existence where spirit and matter are woven into one divine fabric. As your spirituality deepens, synchronicities become more frequent and more vivid. They arrive not as random signs, but as confirmations that your consciousness has entered a higher dialogue with the universe. Jung described this as the bridge between the inner world and outer reality, where your psyche and the cosmos begin to reflect each other like two mirrors facing infinity. When you are truly spiritually awakened, you no longer dismiss these patterns as coincidence because you feel their truth in your bones. Every event carries meaning, every encounter has purpose, and every so-called accident feels like a message designed specifically for your soul's evolution. You realize that the universe doesn't shout, it whispers. And those whispers come as numbers, symbols, synchronicities, threads of divine order woven into the chaos of human experience. These patterns cannot be summoned by will or manipulated by desire. They appear when you are in a state of harmony, when ego has softened enough for awareness to see beyond surface appearances. The spiritually awakened man learns to flow with these signals rather than control them, because synchronicity unfolds through surrender, not force. It is a language of resonance, not reason. The more authentic and present you become, the clearer these divine alignments reveal themselves. The universe responds to your state of being, not your words, and it mirrors back the energy you hold. When your soul vibrates with clarity and purpose, life synchronizes around you in perfect timing. Opportunities arise effortlessly. People appear exactly when they're meant to, and challenges show up as catalysts for deeper awakening. In this space of awareness, the veil between the seen and unseen grows thin. The external world becomes a reflection of your inner transformation. The more you trust these signs, the more they guide you. Spiritual awakening teaches you that there is no separation between your consciousness and the cosmic intelligence that shapes reality. Through synchronicity, the universe reminds you that you are a participant, not an observer, a co-creator in the unfolding of your destiny. Each pattern, each divine coincidence is the universe's way of saying, you are aligned, you are seen, and you are exactly where you're meant to be. 2. The transcendent function, holding paradoxes without breaking. When your consciousness begins to awaken, you develop a rare ability to hold contradictions without collapsing under them. You start realizing that joy and sorrow are not opposites, but companions walking hand in hand through the corridors of your inner world. You begin to see that logic and intuition are not enemies, but two wings of the same bird guiding your flight toward higher understanding. Carl Jung called this mysterious ability the transcendent function, a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind that gives birth to wisdom beyond duality. It is through this sacred function that your spiritual growth deepens, allowing you to see life not as a battlefield of extremes, but as a living symphony where every note, bright or dark, has its place. As you evolve in spirituality, you learn that your emotions no longer need to compete for dominance. You can hold joy without denying sadness, feel gratitude while facing grief, and stay calm even when uncertainty looms. This is not weakness, it is strength refined by awareness. The transcendent function teaches you that peace is not the absence of chaos, but the ability to stay centered within it. When you reach this level of consciousness, you stop searching for one absolute truth and instead allow multiple truths to coexist. You see that meaning and insignificance can appear in the same breath, yet together they form a larger pattern of divine order. People who live through this expanded consciousness often appear paradoxical to others, calm yet passionate, grounded yet visionary, logical yet deeply intuitive. They live beyond ideological extremes, flowing with life rather than resisting it. They no longer cling to rigid identities or labels. They are comfortable being fluid, whole, and undefinable. This is the quiet revolution of the awakened soul. To be everything and nothing at once, to act with clarity without needing to be right, and to love without needing to possess. In this state, your very presence becomes a reflection of unity, the kind of spiritual wisdom that can't be taught through books, but must be lived through experience. When you start holding paradoxes within your being, transformation happens naturally. You learn that the same fire that burns can also illuminate. You begin to accept that every darkness you face is simply another form of light not yet understood. You discover that truth is not a single point, but a living movement, shaped by perspective and time. The transcendent function helps you merge these opposites until they dissolve into understanding. You no longer reject the shadow because you see it as a necessary teacher. You no longer chase constant positivity because you realize that pain too has a sacred purpose. It refines you, strengthens you, and pushes you toward the center of your authentic self. Spirituality, in its truest sense, is not about escaping duality, but embracing it. To awaken spiritually is to stand in the middle of life's contradictions and say, both are true and both belong to me. This awareness creates compassion, tolerance, and humility. You begin to see others not through the lens of judgment, but understanding, realizing that everyone is carrying their own paradoxes within. The awakened consciousness does not seek perfection, it seeks wholeness. And wholeness is born when love and pain, success and failure, logic and intuition finally find peace within the same heart. As you live this truth, your spiritual growth becomes effortless. You stop fighting the flow of life and start dancing with it. You make peace with uncertainty, knowing that wisdom often comes from what cannot be explained. You find beauty in imperfection, meaning in silence, and strength in vulnerability. You realize that to hold paradoxes without breaking is not just a sign of awakening, it is the very essence of enlightenment. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the transcendent function, the divine capacity to hold everything, to feel everything, and still remain whole. 3. Prophetic and transformative dreams. Messages from the self. When a person begins to awaken spiritually, dreams no longer appear as random fragments of the subconscious mind. They become sacred messages from the self, the eternal, divine core that exists within each of us. According to the spiritual wisdom of Carl Jung, dreams are the language of the unconscious, a bridge between the visible world and the invisible depths of the psyche. Jung called these profound visions big dreams because they hold the power to transform one's entire being. They don't just replay memories or imagination. They reveal patterns, give warnings, and prepare the soul for evolution. These dreams are prophetic and deeply symbolic, echoing the truth that dreams are the guiding words of the soul. When you are spiritually awake, you start to realize that your dreams are not illusions. They are sacred dialogues between your consciousness and the divine source that lives inside you. In these states, you may find yourself becoming lucid in the middle of a dream, aware that you are dreaming yet completely immersed in it. The scenes feel alive, the symbols vibrate with meaning, and you sense that something higher is trying to speak through them. You might see water flowing endlessly as a sign of purification and emotional cleansing, or fire consuming old structures, the symbol of transformation and rebirth. You might dream of meeting a guide, a light, or a voice that tells you truths you could not have known consciously. And then, as days pass, you notice these messages unfolding in your waking life situations, synchronicities, or emotions mirroring what your dreams had already shown you. Jung believed that such moments reveal how the psyche is not isolated, but connected to a larger cosmic pattern. What appears to be coincidence is actually correspondence, a conversation between your inner world and the universe itself. These dreams are not always peaceful. Sometimes they come as storms that shake the very foundations of your being. They expose the shadows, the fears, wounds, and desires you've buried deep within. Jung saw this confrontation with the shadow as essential to spiritual awakening, for without facing the darkness, the light of the self cannot fully emerge. A dream that terrifies you is often the one that carries the most powerful message. It shows you what must die within you for something greater to be born. You might wake in fear, yet that fear is an invitation, an opening to healing, to integration, to self-knowledge. It's the soul's way of saying, this is where you are divided. This is where you must become whole. As your awareness deepens, the dream world begins to merge with reality. You sense that sleep is not an escape from life, but a continuation of another dimension where your consciousness explores the hidden architecture of existence. In these moments, you understand that the self, as Jung described it, is not limited by time or space. It is a divine intelligence that speaks through symbols rather than words, through intuition rather than logic. Every dream becomes a message in code. Every symbol, a mirror reflecting the unseen parts of your soul. The more you pay attention, the more fluent you become in this language of the unconscious. You start writing down your dreams, tracing their patterns, and realizing that they are shaping your destiny with precision and grace. Eventually, you come to see that the self is always guiding you through signs, images, and sensations that bypass reason and reach directly into your essence. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When you honor your dreams, you begin to see how fate is not random at all. It is the unfolding of your inner truth through symbols. Your dream life becomes a spiritual compass, leading you toward balance, healing, and purpose. Every night becomes a sacred ritual of remembrance, a journey through the hidden corridors of your own divinity. This is the true meaning of spiritual awakening. To realize that your dreams are not mere illusions of the mind, but the whispers of your eternal self calling you home. 4. Restructuring the ego-self axis, living as both human and divine. Awakening restructures the delicate bridge between your ego, the small self that navigates the world, and the self, the divine consciousness that witnesses it all. It's not about escaping your humanity, but allowing your humanity to serve something far greater. In this profound shift, you begin to live as both participant and observer, like a drop of water that finally realizes it has always been part of the ocean. The ego, once desperate for control, begins to soften. It learns humility, surrendering to the vast intelligence of life itself. This is not the death of the ego, but its transformation. It learns to bow before the infinite, no longer the ruler of your world, but the loyal servant of a higher order within you. You start to sense two currents moving through you at once, the human and the divine, the finite and the eternal. At times, this feels like walking between worlds, carrying both light and shadow within your chest. Carl Jung described this as the restructuring of the ego-self axis, the sacred alignment between the personal and the transpersonal. It's the moment when consciousness begins to expand beyond the small stories of identity and enter into communion with something timeless. You can feel ancient and new all at once, aware of your fragility as a man, yet aware of the cosmic power flowing through your breath. This dual awareness brings both awe and humility. There are days when you feel infinite, touched by the mystery of existence, and other days when your human limitations pull you back to the ground. But both states are sacred, each teaching you how to live fully awake in a human form. True spirituality is not about abandoning the world, but walking through it with divine awareness, seeing yourself as both the creator and the created. You begin to act, not from the ego's ambition, but from the self's quiet knowing. Every choice, every word, every gesture becomes a prayer of alignment between heaven and earth. In this state, even ordinary life becomes holy. You see divinity in the mundane, in laughter, in silence, in the simple act of being. The spiritual awakening humbles you and expands you simultaneously. It strips away your illusions of control, but replaces them with something far deeper: trust. You start to realize that the same consciousness that spins galaxies also beats within your heart. You move through life with a quiet strength, no longer trapped by fear or pride, but guided by presence. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Now, through awareness, you reclaim that direction, not by force, but by surrender. You begin to embody the paradox of existence, to be fully human and fully divine, both the wave and the ocean. This is the essence of spirituality, to live with eyes open to both worlds, to feel your smallness without forgetting your infinity, and to let the ego serve the vast light of the self. Through this, you become a bridge between the visible and the invisible, a living expression of what it means to awaken. 5. Living the myth, recognizing the archetypes. The spiritually awakened person begins to see life not as a random sequence of events, but as a sacred myth, unfolding through deep archetypal patterns that speak to the soul. Every experience of love, heartbreak, triumph, or loss reveals an underlying design that mirrors the timeless stories of the hero's journey or the sacred marriage. You begin to realize that you're not merely an observer of your life, but both the actor and the myth itself, living through symbols that reveal the hidden intelligence of existence. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When this realization dawns, spirituality transforms from belief into awareness, from seeking to understanding, and every challenge becomes a mirror reflecting the deeper truth of who you are. Through spiritual growth, you start to recognize the invisible threads connecting your personal story to the great myth of humanity. Every heartbreak teaches you the art of inner union. Every failure becomes a rite of passage, and every moment of darkness becomes a threshold into greater light. You begin to see that the moments you once resisted are actually sacred initiations, preparing you for transformation. Suffering no longer feels like punishment. It becomes a purifying fire that strips away illusion and awakens strength, compassion, and clarity. In this way, you learn that life is not happening to you. It is happening for you, shaping your consciousness with divine precision. When you awaken to this awareness, you move from reacting to understanding, from questioning fate to cooperating with it. The patterns in your relationships, the synchronicities that guide your steps, and the unexpected turns of destiny all reveal the deeper rhythm of your personal myth. You begin to notice that the universe is speaking in symbols, and that these symbols are not coincidences, but communications from the soul. In this sacred dance between you and existence, you realize that you are never a victim. You are the creator, learning to speak the language of life itself. Carl Jung believed that the human psyche is not isolated, but connected through a collective unconscious, a realm where all myths, archetypes, and symbols are shared. As you grow spiritually, you start to sense this unity. You realize that the hero within you is not separate from the heroes of ancient stories, that your struggles are not unique, but echoes of a universal process of awakening. You begin to live with deeper compassion, seeing in others the same divine patterns that move through you. Their anger reveals their pain. Their pride hides their wounds. Their love mirrors your own longing for wholeness. This understanding dissolves judgment and replaces it with empathy, allowing your spirituality to become an instrument of healing rather than separation. Through this expanded awareness, life itself becomes your teacher. The mundane transforms into the mystical. The ordinary becomes sacred. You no longer seek escape from the world, but engage with it consciously, honoring both its beauty and its chaos. Every conversation, every silence, Every sunrise becomes a message from the divine, reminding you that you are part of something far greater than yourself. You start to trust the process to flow rather than control, to listen rather than demand, to surrender rather than resist. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom: to live in harmony with the unseen intelligence that moves through all things, knowing that nothing is wasted and everything has meaning. When you live with this awareness, spirituality becomes not a practice, but a way of being. You no longer chase enlightenment. You embody it through presence, humility, and compassion. You recognize that the archetypes are not distant myths. They live through you, breathe through your emotions, and act through your choices. The hero, the lover, the sage, and the healer all reside within your soul, waiting to be integrated into wholeness. Through this recognition, your life becomes an expression of the divine myth itself, a living story of awakening where each experience, no matter how painful or uncertain, guides you closer to truth, unity, and higher consciousness. 6. Awakening as an evolutionary leap for humanity. When the invisible patterns of your life start speaking to you through synchronicities, when moments align so precisely that reason fails to explain them, you are not losing your mind, you are awakening. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." These moments are not accidents. They are signs that the universe is mirroring your inner world. Spiritual wisdom teaches that when you begin to notice these alignments, seeing the same numbers, meeting the right person at the exact time, or finding the answer you've been seeking in a random sentence, it is the soul's way of confirming that you are in tune with something greater. This awareness marks the beginning of your spiritual awakening, where your consciousness starts to recognize that life itself is a living conversation between your inner world and the outer one. Then comes what Jung called the transcendent function, the sacred union of opposites within you. Suddenly, your conflicts are no longer enemies, but bridges. The darkness and light, fear and courage, doubt and faith begin to merge into wisdom instead of tearing you apart. You realize that growth is not about choosing one side over the other, but allowing both to transform you. This is where inner tension becomes a sacred fire. Through it, you evolve. As you learn to stand in this tension without running from it, clarity begins to emerge. You no longer reject your pain or glorify your joy. Instead, you hold both gently, knowing that your soul speaks in the language of paradox. During this time, dreams become more than just random images. They become prophetic whispers of your unconscious. You might wake up from a dream, feeling as though your heart has already lived the future your mind has yet to understand. These dreams are not about predicting events. They are mirrors reflecting your hidden emotions, your soul's evolution, and your deepest truth. As Rumi once said, the soul has been given its own ears to hear things the mind does not understand. Write them down, listen closely, and you will discover that your dreams are not fantasy. They are instruction. Then comes the merging of the ego and the self. You stop identifying solely with the limited character you once played and begin to sense the vast consciousness behind it. The ego no longer drives your life. It becomes the instrument of your soul. You understand that awakening is not the death of the ego, but its transformation. You stop chasing validation and start seeking alignment. Your actions arise not from the desire to be seen, but from the need to be true. Here, humility becomes power, and service becomes the natural expression of self-awareness. Finally, your life begins to unfold like a myth. You start to see meaning woven through every challenge, every person, every loss, and every victory. You realize that you are not merely living, you are being lived by something greater, something ancient and intelligent that works through you for the good of all. Your hardships become rites of passage, your solitude becomes sacred ground, and your story becomes part of humanity's collective awakening. Carl Jung called this the irreversibility of consciousness. Once your eyes open, you cannot unsee the truth. You may walk alone for a while, but this solitude is not punishment. It is preparation. Through you, the collective evolves. What feels like a personal awakening is actually a transformation happening on behalf of humanity. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, awareness over reaction, authenticity over approval, you expand the collective consciousness a little more. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that the divine does not awaken in isolation. It awakens through you, through me, through every soul courageous enough to look within. And as Jung so wisely said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But now, with open eyes and an awakened heart, you no longer call it fate, you call it evolution. And as we come to the end of today's journey, remember, this awakening is not about escaping life. It's about learning to see life more clearly. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." So if you've recognized even one of these hidden signs within yourself, take it as a gentle reminder that your soul is evolving, that you are awakening to your true purpose and inner light. If this message touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next exploration into the depths of consciousness and transformation. Your awakening journey continues, and we're walking it together. These 10 rare signs prove you're too intelligent for the average mind. Intelligence is not how much you know, but how deeply you understand. Carl Jung once said that true intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas and still function with clarity, a sign of a mind that has transcended the ordinary. In today's video, we'll uncover 10 rare signs that prove you're not just smart, but profoundly aware, too intelligent for the average mind to easily comprehend. As you listen, reflect on how these traits show up in your daily life and how embracing them can lead to deeper happiness and self-mastery. Do you see yourself in these signs? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's explore the depths of spiritual wisdom together here on Spiritual Wisdom. 1. You question everything. You question everything not to rebel, but to understand. You've never been the kind of person who simply accepts what's given. Instead, you doubt, analyze, and verify. This deep hunger for truth is not just a sign of intelligence, it's a mark of spiritual awakening. You can sense when something doesn't add up, even when everyone else seems convinced. You can feel when words lack substance, when systems are built on illusion, and when people speak from fear instead of understanding. You're not satisfied with surface-level knowledge, because your soul longs for something real, something deeper than the comfort of conformity. Most people stop thinking when they find an answer, but you keep thinking until you find the truth. Your curiosity is not random, it's sacred. It's the silent whisper of your higher self urging you to see beyond appearances. You've learned that real intelligence is not memorizing what others believe, but daring to see what others ignore. You observe, reflect, and ask questions that pierce through layers of conditioning and social hypnosis. This ability to discern is what sets you apart. It's why ordinary conversations often feel shallow, and why superficial explanations never satisfy you. You crave authenticity because your mind and spirit are aligned with truth, not trends. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom, where intelligence and intuition unite to reveal what lies beneath illusion. But the path of the thinker is not always easy. When you question everything, you sometimes stand alone. People may mistake your curiosity for arrogance or your discernment for cynicism. Yet what they don't understand is that your skepticism is not negativity, it's consciousness. You don't reject ideas to feel superior. You reject falsehood to stay free. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain," and you know this firsthand. Every truth you uncover destroys a comforting lie. Every insight you gain separates you a little further from the crowd. Still, you keep going, because the light of awareness is worth more than the warmth of ignorance. Through questioning, you begin to see patterns everywhere. You notice how fear controls people, how ego hides behind morality, how manipulation dresses itself as kindness. You sense the hidden energy behind words, the emotional motives beneath decisions, the invisible structures shaping the world. And that awareness becomes your inner compass. It helps you navigate life with clarity while others wander in confusion. It helps you trust your intuition as much as your logic, blending intellect and spirituality into one clear perception. You understand that wisdom doesn't come from knowing everything, but from realizing how little you truly know and allowing that humility to open new doors of insight. The more you question, the freer you become. You begin to detach from illusions, status, approval, control, and instead value inner peace, purpose, and authenticity. You no longer chase validation because you've learned that truth is its own reward. Each question becomes a key, unlocking another layer of awareness, guiding you closer to your essence. You start to see that life itself is a mystery meant to be lived, not solved. True intelligence, you realize, is not about superiority. It's about consciousness. It's about looking at reality without filters, about daring to ask why until the illusion falls away and only truth remains. And that more than any degree or title is what makes your mind too rare, too luminous, and too free for the average world to understand. Have you ever questioned everything around you, your beliefs, society, or even your own thoughts? If so, share one life-changing insight you've discovered in the comments below so others can grow with you. If not, comment, "I will start questioning," and take the first step toward true spiritual wisdom and awakening. 2. You get bored easily. You get bored easily because your mind is constantly seeking something deeper, something that challenges and expands it beyond the ordinary. Routine tasks feel like a slow death to your creativity because your intelligence isn't satisfied with repetition. It craves stimulation, meaning, and growth. You need variety the way others need comfort. This is not a weakness or impatience. It's the mark of a mind that hungers for evolution. As Carl Jung once said, the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct. You are not merely thinking your way through life. You are playing with possibilities, exploring new territories of thought, and creating meaning where others see monotony. When you find yourself switching careers, hobbies, or passions, it's not because you're lost. It's because your curiosity is alive. Your inner voice keeps whispering that there's more to learn, more to experience, more to uncover. You are not content staying still, because stillness feels like decay to a spirit born to grow. In truth, your boredom is a messenger from your higher self, urging you to move toward greater awareness. Each time you feel the weight of monotony, it's your soul signaling that you've outgrown your current environment and it's time to evolve. This isn't chaos. It's a natural part of your spiritual growth. You are designed to explore, to seek, and to awaken through discovery. You sense when an experience has given you all it can, and once that lesson is absorbed, you instinctively reach for something new. That is the rhythm of intelligence aligned with spirituality, a constant movement between curiosity and understanding, expansion and integration. The danger only comes when you mistake boredom for emptiness, when you think there's something wrong with your inability to settle. The truth is, not everyone is meant to find satisfaction in routine. Some souls are meant to keep moving, to explore the edges of consciousness, and to turn that restless energy into creation. You are one of those souls, but this hunger for novelty can feel lonely. Others may call you inconsistent, ungrounded, or distracted because they don't understand that your restlessness is sacred. It's the spark of creation itself moving through you. The secret is to give that energy direction, to channel your curiosity into something meaningful. When you bring intention into your search for stimulation, every new idea becomes a step on your spiritual journey. You begin to see that the thrill of the unknown isn't about escaping boredom. It's about remembering who you are, an explorer of thought, a seeker of truth, a creator of new realities. Your mind seeks stimulation, but your soul seeks understanding. When these two unite, you find balance. You no longer chase newness just for excitement. You pursue it for growth. You stop running from boredom and start listening to what it's trying to tell you. Every restless thought becomes an invitation to look within, to awaken to a new dimension of your being. And in that awareness, boredom transforms into a powerful teacher. It shows you where your spirit no longer resonates, where your energy no longer flows freely. It points you back to alignment with your true nature. So when you feel uninspired or trapped by routine, remember that it's not a flaw, it's a spiritual signal. It means your consciousness is expanding faster than your environment can contain it. Follow that pull toward new experiences, but do it with awareness. Let curiosity be your compass and spirituality your anchor. Through that harmony, you'll find that your boredom was never the problem. It was always the beginning of your next awakening, a sacred reminder that you were never meant to live on the surface, but to dive endlessly into the depths of life's mystery. 3. You argue with yourself. You often find yourself caught in an invisible debate that no one else can hear. Inside your mind, ideas clash and collide as you analyze everything from multiple perspectives. You question your own reasoning, challenge your conclusions, and rarely take things at face value. This doesn't mean you're confused. It means you're awake. It means your mind operates on a higher level of awareness, where every thought is tested for truth. Carl Jung once said, "Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. But you think deeply. You wrestle with ideas because you understand that growth is born from contradiction, and wisdom is never found in blind certainty. Your inner arguments sharpen your logic and stretch your consciousness beyond the average mind. You look at every belief through both the lens of reason and the mirror of intuition, balancing intellect with soul. At times, this makes you tired mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, but it also refines you. Each internal discussion is like a fire that burns away falsehoods and leaves only clarity behind. It's how spiritual wisdom is born not from external knowledge, but from self-examination. You don't just think, you observe yourself thinking. That's what makes your mind rare, almost sacred. This habit of arguing with yourself reveals your devotion to truth over comfort. While others rush to conclusions, you linger in the question. You sit with uncertainty and use it as a teacher. Carl Jung believed that the pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. And that's exactly what you experience. You're not trying to win the argument. You're trying to understand the whole of it. You listen to both sides of your mind, the rational and the intuitive, and through this internal dialogue, you find balance between intellect and insight. Sometimes, this can feel like carrying a storm within you. The more intelligent and self-aware you become, the harder it is to rest in simple answers. But that's the price of awakening. The deeper your mind goes, the more it demands honesty. You begin to realize that truth isn't something you create, it's something you remember. Through every mental debate, you refine your perception, soften your ego, and grow closer to your authentic self. Your intelligence becomes a mirror that reflects not only knowledge, but consciousness itself. So when your thoughts spiral into long conversations within, don't see it as confusion or chaos. It's the natural rhythm of a rare mind, a mind that refuses to stay asleep. Each argument is a meditation in disguise, each doubt a doorway to deeper knowing. You're not lost, you're evolving. You're practicing the highest form of intelligence, self-dialogue. This is where thought transforms into awareness, where intellect meets spirituality, and where the teachings of Carl Jung come alive within you. Through this sacred debate, you don't just think, you awaken. 4. You feel emotionally out of sync. You feel emotionally out of sync, not because you are distant or detached, but because you are deeply attuned to the unseen vibrations that most people never notice. You sense the subtle shifts in tone, the heaviness that lingers in a room, and the quiet pain behind someone's smile. It's as if your emotional radar is always on, picking up energies that others are blind to. This is not a flaw. It's a mark of spiritual awakening, a sign that your inner world has expanded beyond the average emotional range. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." You are beginning to live consciously, aware of the energies shaping human behavior, aware of how much emotion drives every interaction. But because you feel so much, you often carry what others suppress, and that can leave you exhausted, questioning why being around people sometimes feels like walking through noise that drowns your peace. You're not antisocial, you're selective. You no longer have patience for conversations without substance or connections without soul. Your sensitivity demands depth, your mind demands truth, and your spirit demands harmony. When the world rushes forward with chaos and distraction, you instinctively step back to recalibrate. This withdrawal is not rejection, it's recovery. You seek alignment, not attention, resonance, not recognition. You have learned that not every connection feeds the soul, and not every smile hides good intentions. In the language of spirituality, you are learning the art of energy discernment, knowing what to absorb, what to release, and what to walk away from. Those who experience this kind of spiritual sensitivity live in two realities at once: the external one that seems logical and predictable, and the inner one that whispers with intuition and emotional truth. You feel life not as a series of events, but as waves of vibration, each carrying meaning. This dual perception makes you both wise and weary, connected yet detached, deeply empathetic yet fiercely protective of your peace. You understand that emotional intelligence isn't just about managing feelings. It's about reading the unseen language of energy. Jung believed that true intelligence integrates both intellect and intuition, and that is exactly what you are doing, merging thought and feeling until they move as one current. When others misunderstand you, when they call you too quiet, too intense, or too sensitive, know that it's because they live in the shallow end while you are swimming in the depths. Your detachment is not apathy, it's awareness. You have learned that your empathy is a sacred gift, but it requires boundaries to remain powerful. Every emotion you feel is a compass pointing you toward alignment. Every moment of overwhelm is a reminder to ground yourself, to return to your center, to honor your emotional clarity instead of hiding it. This is not emotional confusion. It is emotional mastery in progress. To feel deeply in a world that numbs itself is an act of courage. To sense energy is to speak the language of the soul. You are not out of sync. You are simply resonating at a higher frequency than most. And as your awareness expands, you'll realize that your sensitivity is not meant to isolate you, but to awaken you. Not to weaken your heart, but to strengthen your discernment. In that space of self-understanding, you begin to embody spiritual wisdom, learning that true intelligence is not about how much you think, but how deeply you feel, how clearly you see, and how gracefully you protect the energy that sustains your soul. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom if this message resonated with you. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss any video that nourishes your spiritual awakening and deepens your self-understanding. Type in the comments, "I choose emotional harmony and spiritual balance." 5. You struggle to relate. You struggle to relate because your mind operates on a completely different frequency. While most people speak in straight lines, your thoughts move in spirals layered, complex, and multidimensional. You don't just hear words, you absorb tone, energy, and hidden meaning. That's why conversations often feel hollow, as though you're playing a role in a play that no longer interests you. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And that's exactly what you feel, the quiet ache of being surrounded yet unseen. You move through the world with a mind that connects ideas faster than others can express them. And this inner speed creates a gap that few can cross. You're not cold or detached. You simply crave authenticity in a world that thrives on surface interaction. You've noticed how often silence becomes your refuge, not because you dislike people, but because you prefer truth over noise. You want conversations that awaken the soul, not ones that drain your spirit. You yearn for moments that explore spirituality, purpose, and the mystery of being alive. But the modern world rarely makes room for that kind of depth. People rush, repeat, and react, while you reflect, analyze, and awaken. That contrast can make you feel like an observer rather than a participant, as if you're walking through a crowd of people asleep. You see patterns in behavior, cycles in emotions, energies in spaces, and this heightened awareness, though powerful, can be isolating. You don't just think, you sense. And that sensitivity, when unshared, can become both your strength and your solitude. At times, you might question whether your intelligence has become a burden. But what you're truly experiencing is the price of spiritual growth. The more awakened your consciousness becomes, the fewer people you can connect with easily. As you evolve, your energy refines, and your soul begins rejecting environments and conversations that no longer match your vibration. You start noticing how draining it feels to explain yourself to those who don't understand. And slowly, you stop trying. You withdraw, not in defeat, but in protection of your inner peace. This is not loneliness, it's recalibration. It's your spirit preparing you for alignment, for higher connections that will understand your silence as much as your speech. Still, there's a tenderness to this experience. When others dismiss your thoughts or misunderstand your emotions, it stings, not because you seek validation, but because you long to share the world that lives inside your mind. You want someone who feels energy the way you do, who reads between the lines and breathes meaning into every moment. Until then, you walk a sacred path few understand. But in this path, you begin to find beauty in solitude. You start realizing that isolation is not emptiness, it's space. Space for your soul to grow, for your mind to expand, for your intuition to lead. You begin embracing your role as both student and observer of life, understanding that spiritual wisdom is often born from the stillness that others fear. And one day, when your vibration has fully aligned, you'll meet others who mirror that same depth. Their presence will not overwhelm you, but ground you. Their silence will not be awkward, but comforting. Until then, you are being shaped by divine design, trained to rely on your own light. So, when you struggle to relate, remember this truth. Your difference is not a curse, it's a calling. You are here to see what others overlook, to feel what others numb, and to remind the world that intelligence without spirituality is empty. But intelligence fused with spiritual growth creates wisdom powerful enough to change lives. 6. You see patterns everywhere. You see patterns everywhere, as if your mind was designed to weave invisible threads between people, events, and ideas that others overlook. What seems like random coincidence to most becomes meaningful to you as a symbol, a sign, a hidden rhythm in the background of existence. You don't just see life, you read it. Every repeated number, every familiar phrase, every synchronicity feels like the universe whispering through coded messages only you can understand. Carl Jung once said, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see." This is not imagination. It's perception beyond logic, the deep intuitive knowing that life itself is structured with purpose and mystery. Your ability to recognize hidden patterns fuels your creativity and intelligence. You can walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional energy between people, detect the unspoken dynamics, and see how one small action might trigger an entire chain of consequences. You notice how human behavior follows cycles, how nature moves in rhythm, how even your thoughts seem to shape your external world. Spiritual wisdom calls this expanded awareness a gift of the awakened mind, a bridge between intuition and intellect. Yet, with this gift also comes the shadow, the endless thinking, the restless questioning, the sleepless nights when you try to make sense of everything. Because when you can see how the dots connect, it's hard to stop looking for more. But true understanding doesn't come from forcing, meaning it comes from flow. There is a fine balance between observation and surrender. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." The patterns you see outside are mirrors of your inner world. They reflect what your soul is trying to teach you, your fears, your desires, your evolution. When you stop chasing meaning and start feeling it, clarity arises on its own. That's when synchronicities stop being random events and start becoming confirmations that you're aligned with a greater design. To see patterns everywhere is not to be cursed, it is to be conscious. It means your mind is operating on a higher frequency, tuned to the subtle order that underlies chaos. You are the type of person who can sense divine intelligence in the smallest details. A conversation, a song lyric, a passing thought, and know it's not an accident. The challenge is to remain grounded while navigating these insights. Not every signal needs decoding. Some are meant to be lived, not analyzed. When you let go of the pressure to understand everything, you begin to experience life as a dance rather than a puzzle. So when the patterns appear again, and they will trust that they are guiding you, not haunting you. They are signs that your consciousness is expanding, that your intuition is alive and listening. You are not imagining things. You are awakening to the architecture of reality itself. And in this awareness, as Carl Jung and the essence of spiritual wisdom remind us, you begin to realize that intelligence is not just the ability to think, but the ability to see, to perceive the sacred geometry hidden within ordinary life. 7. You hate small talk. You hate small talk because your mind was never built for surfaces. It was designed to dive into the depths of meaning, emotion, and truth. Shallow conversations feel like sandpaper against your soul, grating, empty, and unfulfilling. You crave real dialogue, the kind that opens hidden doors within another person, the kind that makes you feel something ancient and alive stirring in your chest. This isn't arrogance, it's a sign of deep consciousness. As Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. You seek that reaction, authentic transformation, not meaningless chatter about weather, gossip, or the latest distraction. Yet beneath your dislike for small talk lies a truth. It's often the bridge that leads to the connection you truly desire. In spirituality and spiritual awakening, every word, no matter how trivial it seems, carries energy. Sometimes, a simple, "How are you?" is not a question. It's a cry for understanding, a signal from another soul longing to be seen. Learning to tolerate small talk isn't a sign of settling. It's an act of compassion. It's how you meet people where they are before you guide them into deeper waters. The wise know that awakening doesn't mean avoiding the shallow. It means finding depth in everything. A truly intelligent soul listens not to the surface of words, but to the vibration behind them, sensing fear, loneliness, or love hidden between lines that most ignore. The more spiritually awake you become, the more you realize that communication is energy exchange. Even meaningless conversations carry patterns of emotion and human need. The impatient mind wants to skip the small moments to reach the profound, but the awakened spirit knows that depth is not something you enter, it's something you bring. By infusing awareness, presence, and empathy into the simplest interactions, you transform them into sacred exchanges. This is what separates intellect from wisdom. Intelligence analyzes words. Awakened wisdom feels their essence. You begin to see that the problem was never small talk. It was unconsciousness. When people speak without awareness, it feels empty. But when you are fully present, even silence between sentences hums with life. The awakened man doesn't wait for meaningful conversation. He creates it. He turns an ordinary discussion into a mirror of the soul, not by forcing depth, but by radiating authenticity. Every question becomes a prayer, every answer a revelation. In that space, spirituality and intelligence merge, and even the most casual dialogue becomes a reflection of consciousness itself. So while small talk may never thrill you, you start to see its hidden purpose. It's the soft opening before the symphony begins, the gentle knock before the door to another soul opens. When you engage with awareness, small talk becomes connection, and connection becomes awakening. That's when you realize that spiritual intelligence is not about avoiding what feels shallow. It's about transforming it into something meaningful, something alive, something divine. 8. You have a dark sense of humor. Having a dark sense of humor doesn't mean you're cruel or detached. It means your soul has learned how to turn pain into wisdom. You see the absurdity and irony woven into life's suffering, and instead of collapsing under it, you transform it into laughter. This isn't insensitivity, it's emotional resilience. It's the quiet sign of someone who has walked through darkness and come out seeing both the tragedy and the comedy of life. Carl Jung once said, "The brighter the light, the darker the shadow." And your laughter at life's shadow side is proof of your inner maturity. You've seen enough of life to know that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, and humor becomes your way of reclaiming your power. When you find humor in heartbreak, chaos, or human contradiction, it shows that your mind has evolved beyond ordinary perception. You're not mocking pain, you're mastering it. You understand that everyone carries wounds, but very few can look at those wounds and laugh without bitterness. That laughter is the mark of spiritual strength. It's the soul's way of saying, "I've been there, but I'm no longer defined by it." You've turned emotional scars into sacred symbols of growth. Through this lens, your humor becomes a form of spiritual awakening, showing that you can embrace life's messiness without losing your grace. Your ability to laugh at darkness also reveals a rare kind of intelligence, one that perceives paradox as truth. You know that life is both tragic and beautiful, cruel and compassionate, meaningless and divine. You see both sides and refuse to choose between them. That awareness itself is the essence of spiritual growth. You no longer try to escape the contradictions of existence. You accept them as part of the greater dance between light and shadow. Your laughter becomes the bridge that connects both worlds, the human and the divine. People who misunderstand you might think your humor is inappropriate or strange, but that's only because they haven't yet faced their own darkness. What they call dark is actually the result of your healing. You've learned to laugh at what once broke you, to see beauty in what once frightened you. That's not avoidance, it's transformation. Every time you find humor in pain, you're performing a kind of spiritual alchemy, turning sorrow into insight and wounds into wisdom. It's your way of saying that even the heaviest experiences can be softened by awareness and love. A dark sense of humor, then, is not about denial, but acceptance. It's a sign that you've reached a level of consciousness where you can look at suffering and still smile. It means you've stopped running from your shadow and started dancing with it. In doing so, you teach others that spirituality isn't about pretending everything is light. It's about learning to find light within the darkness. That is the power of your laughter. It's not mockery, it's mastery. It's not ignorance, it's illumination. And in that laughter lies the quiet wisdom of a soul that has truly awakened. 9. You overthink happiness. You often overthink happiness because your mind refuses to accept it at face value. Instead of simply feeling joy, you analyze its source, its duration, and its meaning, as though you're studying a fragile flame that might vanish at any moment. You sense that joy is temporary, that life constantly shifts between light and shadow. And so even in your happiest moments, a quiet awareness lingers the knowledge that nothing lasts forever. Carl Jung once said, "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness," and that truth resonates deeply within you. Happiness, to you, isn't about constant laughter or an endless pursuit of pleasure. It's about understanding the balance between chaos and calm, gain and loss, joy and sorrow. Because you are attuned to life's impermanence, contentment sometimes feels like sand slipping through your fingers. Yet that very awareness gives birth to spiritual wisdom. You understand that happiness is not something to chase, but something to create, something woven into moments of meaning, purpose, and presence. You find satisfaction not in the temporary highs of comfort, but in the quiet fulfillment that comes from creation, reflection, and truth. When others rush to escape their emptiness with noise and distraction, you sit with silence and listen. You feel the subtle rhythm of life, and you know that true happiness whispers, and it never shouts. You see, intelligence and spiritual awakening often come with the gift of depth, and with that depth comes an awareness that pleasure alone cannot fill the soul. You no longer find joy in surface-level excitement or shallow validation. Instead, your heart yearns for alignment, for the harmony between your thoughts, actions, and spirit. The ordinary person seeks happiness outside themselves, but you've realized that happiness born from the external world fades quickly. Real joy is internal, born from living in truth, from expressing your authentic self, and from turning pain into purpose. When you analyze your happiness, it isn't because you're ungrateful. It's because you want to understand the architecture of meaning. You sense that life's beauty lies in contrast, that joy feels profound precisely because you've known sorrow. And in that understanding, You embody Carl Jung's teaching that wholeness is achieved not by rejecting pain, but by integrating it. You transform suffering into art, heartbreak into compassion, and solitude into strength. Every moment of reflection refines your consciousness and deepens your connection to life itself. You may feel misunderstood at times because your happiness doesn't look like everyone else's. You don't need constant stimulation or validation. You find peace in creation, in learning, in quiet moments where your mind and soul merge into awareness. That's where true happiness lives, not in excitement, but in clarity. And when you stop overanalyzing and start allowing yourself to feel, happiness becomes effortless again. You realize it was never lost, only buried beneath layers of thought. So when your mind starts to dissect joy, pause and breathe. Let yourself feel the simple miracle of being here alive, aware, and awake. You don't need to control happiness or explain it. You only need to experience it fully, as it is. Because happiness, in its truest form, isn't a goal to reach. It's the natural state of a soul at peace with both its light and its darkness. 10. You feel like an outsider. Even when surrounded by people who love you, there are moments when you feel strangely apart, as if you're watching life unfold rather than truly living it. This sense of separation is not a flaw. It's awareness. You are not disconnected from the world. You are simply perceiving it from a higher vantage point. Your solitude is not loneliness, but a sacred retreat, a place where your deep mind recharges and your spirit realigns. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." That is the mark of an awakened mind, one that senses what others cannot name, one that sees truth where most only see the surface. You've learned to observe human nature as though from a balcony above the crowd, recognizing the unspoken motives behind actions, the hidden sorrow behind smiles, the fear behind anger. This heightened perception can make you appear distant, yet it is compassion in its purest form. You no longer need to react to everything you see because you understand that every soul is finding its way at its own pace. This emotional distance is not detachment, but mastery. It allows you to remain peaceful while others lose themselves in chaos. You stand rooted in self-awareness while the world rushes by, and that, in essence, is spirituality in motion. There's a quiet power in your solitude, a depth that frightens shallow minds. You find nourishment not in noise, but in silence, not in crowds, but in contemplation. When others crave distraction, you seek meaning. When they chase pleasure, you search for purpose. Your spirit finds connection not in the many, but in the few, those rare souls whose depth mirrors your own. These are the moments when you realize that being an outsider is not a curse, but a compass, guiding you toward authenticity, truth, and inner peace. The spiritually awakened don't need the world to understand them. They only need to understand themselves. You are not meant to blend in with the ordinary because your consciousness has outgrown it. The very detachment you once resisted becomes your sanctuary. You no longer crave to be heard. You are content to simply know. You no longer chase validation. You carry quiet certainty within. This is the essence of spiritual awakening: to walk among others while no longer being lost among them, to love deeply yet remain free, to see life not as chaos, but as a profound mirror of the soul. You are not an outsider. You are evolution in human form. An awakened mind moving gracefully through a world still learning how to see. To embrace your unique path and honor the depth of your individuality, take a moment to declare it. Comment below. I embrace my difference as a reminder that being an outsider is often the mark of true spiritual awakening and uncommon intelligence. Your words may inspire another rare soul to finally feel seen. And that brings us to the end of today's journey through the mind of the rare and extraordinary. True intelligence isn't about how much you know, it's about how deeply you understand, how courageously you think, and how compassionately you live. If today's message spoke to your soul, don't forget to leave a like, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights inspired by Carl Jung and timeless truth. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos that continue to awaken your higher mind and deepen your spiritual wisdom.